Hey folks, it's me, Bittersteel, back with another video for Hearts of Iron 4. Today I have an interesting one for you. That's right, we'll be playing as the Netherlands. The Netherlands has one of the more unconventional achievements associated with it, Bevrijding. It involves us capitulating and then uncapitulating ourselves. So we'll start out a game with the intention of losing it. That's right, sounds interesting? Let's go. We'll simply pick the Netherlands, Iron Man mode on, and historical AI on for that nice, predictable gameplay. But first, if you like these videos, leave a like, consider subscribing for more of this content, and don't forget to click the bell icon to be notified whenever I upload new videos. Also, feel free to check out my Twitter. I post some funny memes there and updates on the channel, as well as check out our Discord. We've set up a nice little community. I'll leave links to both Twitter and Discord down in the video description below. Now, on to the video. The Netherlands, 1936. A bunch of terrible national spirits. Okay, we'll see what we can make out of this. First things first, the military. Disband everything. Everyone has to go. And in turn, we will be going to this button here, which allows us to view our subject templates. Pick the Dutch East Indies and their version of the Infanterie Divisie. Copy that over. What we're going to do now is train these and make as many of them as we can. Just an absolute ton of them. Simply deploy them somewhere in the Dutch East Indies. Put them on a high priority. Everything else can actually just be lowered a little bit. And we will constantly be force deploying these, as many of them as we can, as quickly as we can. They don't have to be equipped. They don't have to have pants. We just want them out the door in the field. We need divisions and as many as we can get. While we're panned all the way over here, might as well do construction next. Start out with a little civilian factory, add on military factory, and then a dockyard. I like building these in Java because it has the highest infrastructure of all the Dutch East Indies. But other good places to build would be the island of Sulawesi and the Moluccas here. Japan hardly ever invades these in my experience, and they're good places to build. Or just, you know, the other parts of the Dutch East Indies. It doesn't really matter where you build. Our plan will be to defend all of this anyway. It's just a matter of getting the infrastructure up to an acceptable level. Production next. We will keep one factory on infantry equipment. Start out a second production line with infantry equipment. Now I would add these on here, but we'll just have to take them off later again, since these will be swapped over to aircraft later. The Navy build convoys, we'll need boats, and the rest can be spent on submarines. We'll need a lot of submarines. Submarines and planes will be our main contribution to the Allies. Speaking of airplanes, we will get strategic bombers first. Then we'll spend one research slot on the engineering techs, and the other slot can do some of the industry techs. Research, by and large, will be mostly generic, keeping up to date with the industry, keeping up to date with research, and then focusing the rest of our time on getting better strategic bombers, getting the strategic destruction air doctrine out of the way. Though this one isn't a top priority, we will get a lot of air experience later on anyway. We also have to focus on the naval branch here. Most importantly, submarines. We'll be getting sub 3s as quickly as possible and using our naval experience to get the torpedo research up to date as well. The infantry techs here are a bit of an afterthought, but not a bad idea to at least get them up to date eventually. But we will not be bothering with support companies, armor, artillery. Maybe a bit of land doctrines if we have bonuses, but it's absolutely not a priority. We will not really be engaging in any land warfare other than defending our little islands here. Now for focuses, we'll start out by forming a new government. Don't bother with any of these decisions just yet. We'll need that political power elsewhere. And with that setup done, let's kick things off. Now for the Navy, you'll notice that the Netherlands starts out with a relatively decent Navy. We will be moving all the submarines into a single fleet, and we'll do the same for the surface fleet. However, we'll be separating these fleets. The submarine fleet can be under the command of Conrad here. He's an excellent submarine specialist, while the surface fleet, not that important, just pick whomever. We can set these to doing a little bit of naval exercising for some free experience. There we go. We can form a new government. Let's see who we get. Mustache Man. Yes, Dirk Jan. Now we will not be bothering with this part of the tree just yet. We have more important things to do over here, and we'll abandon the gold standard next. Now with basic machine tools out of the way, we can pick an industry branch. Now there's something to be said for concentrated industry in this case, since we will mostly be producing the same things over and over again and not switching out lines constantly or starting up new lines. However, I still very much like dispersed industry, so it's a bit of a toss-up in this case. I'm gonna give it a try with concentrated industry. Now we've abandoned the gold standard, let's move on and overturn military budget cuts. Yes, we'll be staring at this screen for quite a while, but trust me, it'll be worth it. There we go. We have our first strategic bomber built. Catch up on some industry techs while we're here. Now we can swap out our production. Let's delete the line here and simply start up a new one consisting of many airplanes. Now, as for trading rubber, you could get these cheaply from the Dutch East Indies. However, that will raise their autonomy. Rather trade with the British and not have to deal with that headache. We can also spend a little bit of political power now, and our first pick will be the military theorist. We will need some army experience for what we're about to do.
3 days later.
Military budget cuts have been overturned. Let's move on and prepare naval expansion. We will need to get a lot of submarines out the door if we're going to matter in the coming conflict. And with those techs done, let's see, we're caught up as far as engineering goes. It's not worth going ahead of time. And we're also caught up in terms of industry. We won't be getting synthetics, we'll have enough oil on our own, so might as well pick up the first tech in strategic destruction. I wouldn't recommend going further down the tree until we're actually bombing someone, because that will give us a lot of army experience and quick research. Same here, naval doctrine, and we'll get trade interdiction 1. We'll get a few bonuses to the research from our focus trees, so just getting this first one out of the way really helps. Speaking of those bonuses, with repair naval expansion done, we can get cornerstone of colonial defense, giving us 3 bonuses to naval doctrine, and we can spend some more political power. A good pick now would be the genial anti-revolutionary, for 10% political power and 5% stability. For now, this will be our last pick for political power. We will need a lot of PP for what we're about to do next. We'll need to save up at least 300, and then we have a few smaller amounts to spend. Besides, most of these other picks are not that relevant until we're actually involved in Europe. Alright, it looks like the Navy is starting to build a couple of ships. Let's lay down our plans for the future here. Let's assign these ships to the submarine fleet, and we'll start splitting these off into groups of 5. 5 should do. Now we'll select the fleet and click this button, enable automatic reinforcement as well as automatic split off. This is just so damaged ships go home to repair instead of taking the entire fleet with them. And this one will automatically add ships to the fleet to fill out the template that we set. The template that we currently have selected will cause the fleet to aim for 5 submarines in each task force, meaning whenever a ship gets blown up, another one will be drafted in from our reserve fleets. We can add a few more of these by the time we are ready for the European debacle. This guy can command up to 10 task forces, so that will be a very nice amount of submarines to get. Realistically, we won't really get there. I think maybe 5 or 6 task forces is appropriate and realistic. Besides, we will be losing a lot of these sub 1s very quickly. They're very easily spotted and they don't really stand up that well in a fight. And with construction done, we'll soon be ready to start on some more of these industry techs. However, not yet. Let's just get these torpedo upgrades. With cornerstone of colonial defense out of the way, we can now rely on submarines. Nice bonus for submarine models. Not bad. And with those torpedoes researched, it's now time to head back into the industry branch. Another interesting path to take is this fuel refining branch, since we will be using a lot of fuel. But we can pick that when war is a little bit closer. Now we're done with rely on submarines. Let's appoint a new supreme commander. The army needs new men. Now with the first tech in strategic destruction done, we will not be hard researching the rest of these. We'll be making a lot of air experience once Europe really kicks off, and we'll be using those bonuses to get this research done. For now, let's turn back to the industry path, get some construction. Now we have appointed a new supreme commander. Our next pick can either be modernize the infantry equipment or production under license. I leave this choice up to you. I personally don't use licenses a lot, so I'll just stick with our own infantry equipment. Excellent! We finished the first tech in trade interdiction. Now we will be dedicating this research slot to the rest of these techs for the foreseeable future. This one research slot will be specializing in naval doctrine and naval research, specifically anything to do with submarines. And we'll just keep the industry up to date as much as we can.
3 weeks later.
Now we have modernized our infantry equipment. We can't move into these secret staff talks just yet. We need a little bit more world tension. Now, Japan is hard at work at fixing that for us, but for now, there's a few other things we can do. We'll continue the public works. We're still too far ahead of time to head into these next research techs, so fuel refining it is. We've continued to public works. We'll keep in this branch all the way down to expand the artillerieinrichtingen. Just be careful not to pick continue the Zuiderzeeworks. This locks you out of curtail colonial autonomy, and we need that to continue in Batavia. Oh, seeing as we have a nice industry boost, not a bad idea to skip ahead and get concentrated 3. Well, seeing as we're caught up with the fuel refining and basic industry, maybe let's get some excavation done here. Now that we have expanded the artillerieinrichtingen, it's time to finally do those secret staff talks. Nice. Okay, our naval research slot has burned through all of the boosts for naval doctrines. Let's go to the actual boats now. 275 days. That may be a little bit much for now, but I believe it will be worth it in the end. And with that concentrated industry bonus used up, it's time to catch up on the computing machine here. Excellent, we've concluded our secret staff talks. Let's move further on to the left and obtain some foreign colonial investments. Yes. Now under our decisions, you'll notice a whole bunch of new decisions to take here. Secret staff talks. The important one here is to prepare evacuation of the gold reserves. Very important. Now, seeing as we're researching a new type of submarine, and we're sitting on a lot of PP, we might as well use some of it to get a new ship designer, the raiding fleet designer. Make our submarines as invisible as possible. Now we've finished obtaining colonial investments. Let's work on the crown jewel colony and really start improving the Dutch East Indies. We also have access to a few new decisions and we want to spam these. They're pretty great. And with excavation 1 done, it's on to excavation 2. And we're still sitting on quite a lot of political power. Might as well switch it up and get free trade, because why not? Nice. And with the crown jewel colony completed, let's start work on curtail colonial autonomy. We have to keep the Dutch East Indies close. They'll be all we have soon. Alright, we're caught up with engineering. This is well ahead of time. Let's use this slot to catch up on the infantry equipment as well. Like I said, infantry equipment will not be a priority, but we'll need some of it to at least competently defend our islands. The Japanese will come knocking. And with colonial autonomy curtailed, let's finish up these 3 techs here. Java, Sumatra, Borneo, and the Grote Oost. Now we have our new shiny submarines. Tech 4 is well ahead of time. Not worth it. Maybe I'll get these snorkels instead. Now with those new submarines, let's also start building them. I like to jack these up to the max, start a new line, and let the old line finish off whatever it was making. Now somewhere around this time, you'll notice that we can lower the autonomy of a subject. Yes, we can annex the Dutch East Indies. However, we're not gonna do that just yet. First, we're gonna want to finish off Sumatra and Borneo and the Grote Oost. After that, we can get on with annexing the Dutch East Indies. Now we got some snorkels. Let's use some of those naval experience points to get the better torpedoes as well. Alright, with all these improvements done, let's head to reinforce Java. It will help fend off the Japanese. It seems like Germany has kicked things off in Europe and they'll be coming for us soon. Let's have a look here. Let's just cancel all of these production lines and go into this template that we've been building. What we're gonna do is use all of this army experience we've built up to greatly expand this division. There, 46 combat with pure infantry. Don't worry, this will not be used to do any fighting. This is just a very neat trick. Have a look at the Dutch East Indies. They have almost 700,000 manpower at their disposal. Let's have a few days tick by. And we've gobbled all of that manpower up. Delicious. Next step, lower the autonomy and annex the Dutch East Indies. We have annexed the Dutch East Indies. Now we simply delete all of these divisions. And we have 1.5 million manpower. Now this manpower will start to trickle down a little bit, but that's still quite a bit of manpower to work with as the Netherlands. You can also get rid of these divisions they've already built. We won't be using those. No, going forward, we will simply be training these guys. Koloniale Garnizoen. Just training as many of these as we can. We're simply going to be churning these out continuously. We'll also be deploying them to the Dutch East Indies, but we have to wait until we've capitulated, because currently, as you can see, we can't deploy them here yet, but they can be trained. As for the rest of this political power, we'll be using that to switch out to limited conscription, and the other 150, we'll be holding on to that until we can go with war economy. That will happen pretty soon when Germany comes knocking. Now, with Germany coming, let's also organize the air fleet. Organize the bombers into wings of 100 aircraft and have them ready to skedaddle out of there. We don't want to have anything in our stockpile, because if we capitulate, Germany gets half of that. If we have the planes deployed and parked somewhere else, Germany can't get to them when we capitulate. War support is a little bit on the low side though, so let's just do a little bit of war propaganda. There we go, the German Reich has declared war. First things first, we will accept the UK's invitation to the Allies. At least this way we won't be completely gobbled up. Second order of business, we'll take all of our airplanes and move them over to London, as well as the Navy. Let's secure them somewhere so they don't get caught with their pants down. I'll just send them over to London, and our surface fleet, useless as it is, can go sit in port in the Dutch East Indies. We need a little bit more war support. We'll get that through our war propaganda. And after that we can use this political power to go up to a war economy. And now we wait for the Germans to walk in. Now, seeing as everything is a little bit ahead of time in this naval research slot, let's also dedicate a little bit more time to the infantry equipment. We'll need to fend off Japan. While we wait to capitulate, let's also lay out our plans for the bomber fleet here. We'll take half of these planes and set them over the Alpine region, strategic bombing, specifically targeting military factories. And the other half over Italy, again, specifically targeting military factories. As we get more of these airplanes, we will make more wings and become an even greater nuisance. What will happen is, Italy, once they get pulled into the war, will take so much damage to its military factories that they will effectively become useless. That's right, they can be even more useless than they already are. And with Italy so crippled, that will effectively reduce the axis to one major power. And that will give Russia a fighting chance, and even the incompetent allied AI will finally have a shot at making some naval landings work. This might take a while, but virtually guarantees victory in the end. We finished reinforced Java, but we haven't capitulated just yet, so let's go pick up foundations of defense first. Actually, it looks like we're about to capitulate, so just cancel this. And we have capitulated. Good tidings. Let's pick up, continue the war in Batavia. Let's also look into our decisions here. Desperate defense is a little bit late, but we can start lobbying for support here. We're gonna want to do this to get our legitimacy up. This is a mechanic for exiled governments. Basically, the more legitimate you are, you unlock a few bonuses. Pretty good. Now let's take a look here. Yeah, our production is pretty terrible. Might as well switch it out now. We've lost most of our factories and all of our dockyards, but that's okay. We can recover quite a bit by integrating the Dutch East Indies to continue the war in Batavia focus. After that, we will simply rebuild over there. Don't panic. Now, to make these submarines work for their dinner, we'll set them up for convoy raiding in the sea zones around Italy. What this will do is effectively reduce Italy's capacity to wage war in Africa to nothing. However, I've noticed that Italy is quite competent at pushing out from the Horn of Africa, so there might still be problems over here, but hey, can't win them all. And a nice little bonus for having those gold reserves evacuated. Excellent! With continue the war in Batavia done, we can start deploying some of our troops. Let's have them just deploy in Batavia. We will not be rushing them out the door, we'll simply be training them at a high priority and set the rest of these things back to normal. Now, as for national focuses, let's turn to foundations of defense. Now, after we finish the foundations of defense, we will be heading down the rest of the tree until we pick up, prepare for our return. As you can see, now that we have relocated the government to the East Indies, we do have some more factories once again. We even have a few dockyards. So we're still in the fight, boys. Oh, war support is high enough. Almost forgot. Let's just get war economy. Now, as for research, at this point, I'm not going to continuously repeat what I'm doing. I would recommend getting strategic bombers upgraded as quickly as possible. They're excellent for this strategy. Other than that, focus on keeping your industry and research speed up to date and invest heavily in the submarine fleet and the strategic bombers. The infantry is an afterthought. There's no harm in keeping it up to date, but not at the expense of the airplanes or the submarines. You will have to defend against Japan, but major land operations will be up to the AI, unfortunately. And as these units start coming in, assign them to an army and immediately add a field marshal. The defensive guy is best for our purposes, and just assign anyone and simply set garrison orders across your islands. I wouldn't bother with these two here, or these really. Now, two things you have to take into account. You want to garrison the Australian bits here, so these two zones here, garrison these because Australia does a terrible job at it, and once Japan's in, they're gonna be very annoying to get out. Same with the British Malaya up here. Garrison this bit here, otherwise the AI is going to do a terrible job of keeping its ports defended. And simply have these units defend victory points and the ports. Might as well add forts because British Malaya builds a crap ton of forts up here, making for a very defensible coastline. Meanwhile, Germany is doing its thing in Europe. Not much we can do about that, but we can slowly start whittling down Italy. And as you can see, the Navy is already doing a pretty bang-up job against Italy in the Mediterranean. So far, we've lost 3 vessels and we've sunk 52. I believe those are very good odds. Now, early on, fuel is going to be a concern. We'll start alleviating our fuel concerns through these decisions to attract investments in oil companies, West and East Indies. But at the start, fuel will be a problem. To alleviate this, at the start of the war, we'll have to choose which we prioritize. Right now, I think the Navy is doing a great job at keeping Italy contained in Africa. So I'm going to turn down the Air Force a notch and just not have them active just yet. As you can see, that immediately. Now, as for political power, let's see here. Good picks would be a Chief of the Navy, Commerce Rating, Night Operations guy is also pretty good for our bombing runs, and General Army investments such as the Army Defense and the Infantry Expert to defend against Japan. Now, Japan is still a bit off, so I believe Commerce Rating is the way to go.
A few moments later.
There we go, that's one army filled up with these quite terrible divisions. Let's keep making more of them. Yes, they are terrible, but we have a lot of them, and they'll be enough to fend off the Japanese attacks along with our navies. We'll be turning our submarines this way once Japan starts getting ideas. Looks like the UK did a pretty good job of cleaning Italy out from North Africa, but they always manage to really hold on in the horn here. There we go. Better aircraft. Let's immediately start producing them. We have some air experience, so why not upgrade them as well before we throw them on the line. Now, throughout the campaign, keep lobbying for support until you have 100 legitimacy, and keep attracting these oil companies just to make sure that we can provide all the oil the Allies need, as well as all the fuel our bombers and planes will require. Yeah, Italy is really aggressive here in the Horn of Africa. They seem to be able to push out every time, even though I'm convoy raiding the ever-loving bejesus out of their home territory. Oh well, doesn't really matter. 25% of all their military factories are damaged. See if we can bump that up. Now, as long as we have some fuel problems, what I personally like to do is turn my airplanes off every now and then, and leave these submarines in place to convoy raid. This really hampers Italy's options. If you want to do it the other way around, that's fine too. Doesn't really matter. Just make sure you don't run out of fuel while keeping everything going. Everything will be working at such a low efficiency you'll end up taking huge losses. Well, we should have enough submarines to convoy raid both the East African shore and the Italian home waters. Let's see if we can give the UK a little boost in Africa. They sure need it. Now we have finished prepare for our return. We cannot quite take liberation yet. This is the last focus we need to complete the achievement. However, we can only take that once we have full control of Holland, Brabant and Friesland. So once the Allies have liberated us. So we'll have to look elsewhere. Let's head towards Philips and expand R&D facilities for some more research slots. If you see a lot of German airplanes contesting your control of the Alpine region and Italy itself, don't worry about it too much. Germany will pull all of its planes out once it starts Barbarossa. After that, Italy is a sitting duck. They hardly have their own air force and you will be bombing them into oblivion. Besides, once you get the really good strat bombers, they trade very favorably with fighters. Right, very important event to pop up. UK requests naval integration. Always pick "we will not serve under them." If you click "we agree," we sign over our entire navy to the UK. Not a great idea. The AI is just not good at naval management. We need to control our own submarines to defend our islands. So we will not serve under them. Now that we have expanded the R&D facilities, I will leave the next choices for you. We can either expand the MLD, modernize the air fleet for a nice production cost reduction, or you can head further down its political tree. There's some good options here as well. The focuses aren't that important. The most important thing now is to defend your islands with your horde of very bad divisions. Shouldn't be too difficult, and to use the navy and airplanes wisely to cripple the Axis powers. Let's have another look at the navy. I think we're trading quite favorably here. So far, we've lost 39 submarines and we've sunk 207 enemy ships. Most of these are convoys, but still, that's a lot of capacity we've taken away from Italy. Germany has declared on the Soviet Union, which means they'll start pulling their planes away from Italy, meaning Italy is about to have a very bad day. And it already looks like they're not doing that great. There we go. Japan has declared on the Philippines, which means they're now justifying on us. It's time to pull the navy back. So unfortunately, we will have to abandon the UK in their efforts in Africa for now. We might be able to come back later, but we need to shield our own islands. So we're going to set up convoy raiding in these zones. This will effectively provide a shield from Japanese naval invasions. Sure, they may land some yet, but this does hamper their efforts significantly. And without German air cover, Italy is crumbling. We're already up to 42% of the military factories being damaged. I'm not quite sure why, but it seems the Japanese AI has forgotten about us. They finished their southern resource area focus, but they've not declared war yet. This means the US isn't being pulled into World War II either. Bit annoying, not insurmountable, however. The US eventually joins, and if not, well, you can always fix this manually. And once you start getting more bombers than you need for reinforcement, start making a few extra task forces. The more bomber wings, the more damage we can do. Alright, we've got 2 full armies of this chaff now. I think we can stop recruiting more, and we'll start stockpiling equipment so we can turn this into at least a 10 with. And on today's episode of Pointless Naval Invasions, Yugoslavia. Oh, Italy, you're not looking too great now, are you? 54% of your factories are destroyed, and it's starting to show in Africa as well. You can see these yellow bars aren't being filled. Most of these units are very undersupplied. This might actually give the UK a chance to claim Africa.
20 minutes later.
Interestingly enough, Liberia is willing to join the Allies. Yeah, here the United States sit. No faction. Thanks, US. Appreciate it. The United Mexican States joined the Allies, and here the US sits. No faction. It's now almost halfway into 1942, and the United States still haven't joined. This is a bit of an anomaly. Usually Japan will immediately start declaring its wars on the European powers in the Eastern Theater. This time they haven't. I believe it's because they're doing quite terribly in China, and they're not making much headway in the Philippines either. So what you could do is either wait, if you don't mind sitting around doing nothing, or simply justify your own war goal. It's quick enough. This will pull Japan into the war and will get the US to join the faction, eventually joining both wars together. However, you will take a hit to your war support and to your stability, I believe, for declaring an offensive war. Choice is yours, really. Well, it's April 1942. The US probably isn't joining this on their own. No idea why. Probably something to do with Japan not declaring war on us. So we'll have to take matters into our own hands. Let's liberate southern Indochina, 25 days. Again, this is a bit of a worst case scenario. Usually Japan will simply declare war on the European colonizers in East Asia, and that will pull in the US. Guess this time we just need to give them a little hand. With our justification done, let's just pull Japan into our war. Call on all our allies. And that finally did it. That was the trigger for the UK to invite the United States to the Allies. That's great. Now we have the US on our side. Now it's just a matter of sitting and waiting while we bomb Italy and convoy raid Japan.
1 hour later.
Now apparently with Italy being weighed down so much by our bombing, Germany has to do all of the heavy lifting themselves, meaning the Soviet Union finally has a fighting chance, and they've actually pushed back Romania significantly. Meanwhile, the Allies are busy liberating Greece. They've made a successful naval landing in Yugoslavia. This is looking up. Now, in your game, this may not play out this way, but eventually the US and UK will do huge D-Day landings in France, and it will all come crashing down for the Axis at that point. It may take a while, but eventually the AI will get their act together. And Japan has started its naval landings. They'll be heavily contested by our submarines, but whatever makes it through usually doesn't have much strength left, and our tiny garrison divisions stacked on the ports will have no problems whatsoever cleaning up the Japanese. These little Japanese naval invasions usually peter out rather quickly. Your garrison divisions will mop these guys up once their organization drops from being out of supply. The ports will usually hold fairly well. And over in Europe, it's now just a matter of time. Eventually, Allied beachheads will expand, and the Germans on their own can't hold back both Allies and Comintern. As you can see, the Comintern is still very much alive. Well, the AI is still the AI, and even though they had Italy completely bottled up in the Horn, they've decided to do stupid shit. As you can see. Oh well. Fortunately, sometimes they do good things as well. That's probably Italy down for the count. Yes, speaking of stupid shit the AI does, they just naval invaded Italy, and just as they have a foothold, they pull all of their troops out to ship them somewhere else. Paradox AI just don't even. I honestly have no idea what the AI is doing, but eventually they will win this simply through sheer numbers. Oh, Soviet Union's breaking out. They're doing quite well this run. Well, it looks like despite AI stupidity, it's going our way anyway. Sheer numbers will win the day here. Italy is just about knocked out. And when Italy bites the bullet, just redirect your bombers to the industrial heartland of Germany. That will be the area around Brandenburg and the areas around Frankfurt and Stuttgart, the Rhineland essentially. This is actually very interesting. The Soviet Union has taken fewer casualties than the Germans. That's astounding. And we've got a fair deal of war participation here, 20%. Just using airplanes and submarines, not bad. Now we just sit back, relax, and watch Germany crumble. Allies have reached the Netherlands. Good, good. Now, a few things might happen here. With our capital shifting back to Amsterdam, we might run into a few supply problems. As you can see, we need a lot of convoys suddenly for trade and supply. We need to supply all those troops in the Dutch East Indies because they're no longer connected to our capital via land. This is a little bit of an annoying hump to get past. Now don't get too excited just yet. The Allies are known for shifting troops around constantly, so we're not quite ready to take the focus. But we're close. It's just a matter of waiting for Germany to really run out of steam now.
One eternity later.
So it's 1943. All of our territory is retaken, and it doesn't look like the Germans are bouncing back from this one. This is pretty much it for the Germans. Now we can finish off this focus, and then we can simply take liberation, and we're done. There we go. The Germans have thrown in the towel. That concludes our war with the Axis. And we can take some stuff if we really want to. It already looks like the Soviets have made quite a mess of Europe. They've puppeted Vichy France, they've puppeted Italy, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, wow, and Hearts of Iron. Peace deals being what they are, this one is no exception. Just look at that delicious border gore. 3 Germanys, yes. For some reason the US took apart France, the Soviets puppeted half of France, the UK liberated a bunch of North African countries. Actually, I was wrong. This is even better than the Soviets puppeting part of France. This is the United States of America coming to the aid of France and then puppeting half their country after the war's done. This is great. American Southern France. Wow. Yeah, Yugoslavia didn't come out of this peace deal favorably, did they? No, they lost Slovenia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Macedonia, Montenegro. Oof. Yeah, they took a beating. There we go. We have completed the focus liberation. That is the final one we need for the achievement Bevrijding. As the Netherlands, we have capitulated. we moved the government to Batavia, then we uncapitulated and finished the focus liberation. That's one more achievement in the bag. And oh, doesn't this map of Europe look beautiful? I'm sure everyone can agree with me that this is peak Hearts of Iron. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I actually had quite a bit of fun making this and watching the AI do weird things. If you want to see more videos of me doing achievements or challenges, consider subscribing, hit that like button, and tell me what you want to see me do next down in the comments below. If you didn't like the video, or if you don't like things I do, hit me up in the comments, tell me what I'm doing wrong. I'm always looking to improve. This has been me, Bittersteel. Have a good one.